I'm actually devastated. I just thought finally something was going to happen for sexual assault survivors.
Mixed reactions after a mixed verdict today in the Sean Diddy Combs case. The crowd got heated outside of the New York courthouse after the jury's decision. The jury found Combs not guilty on the most serious charge of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. However, they did convict him of 2 counts related to the prostitution charges. Within the last hour, a judge denied Combs bail, meaning he will stay behind bars until his sentencing. Bradley Blackburn has Diddy's reaction in court and what happens next in this case.
Family members were greeted with cheers outside the courthouse minutes after Sean Diddy Combs heard the jury's verdict. The hip-hop mogul was found not guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He was found guilty of arranging transportation to engage in prostitution.
The government has to have their tail between their legs. This is just a huge loss for them. They went out on a limb, and the jury, saw it the way the defense saw it.
Prosecutors tried to convince the jury Combs was the leader of a criminal enterprise, one that forced women into abusive sex acts during drug-fueled parties he called freak-offs.
Whether or not the freak-offs cross that line from maybe morally questionable or seriously questionable to illegal, I think that's where things broke down for the prosecution.
The government's star witness was Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
She was pleased that he's been found guilty and held responsible of 2 federal crimes, something that he's never been held responsible in his entire life.
The verdict is seen as a big win for the defense. Combs' attorneys had argued the freak-offs were consensual and accused the prosecution of putting Combs on trial for his lifestyle. Even cleared of the most serious charges, his conviction on the prostitution counts could bring up to a decade behind bars.
This sentencing is really up in the air. He has no prior offenses, which puts him in the lowest category for calculating those guidelines.
As the verdict was read, Combs pumped his fist in the air, then dropped to his knees in prayer and said to his family, "I'll be home soon." But after hearing arguments from both sides, the judge denied his request for bail and said he'll stay behind bars until sentencing.
Bradley joins us now live outside of the courthouse in New York City. Bradley, we mentioned that bail was denied. What was the judge's thinking on that in the courtroom?
Frank, it's interesting. He specifically cited evidence presented during the trial and an acknowledgement by the defense that Combs was violent in his personal relationships. So the judge essentially said that the defense hadn't provided enough evidence that he does not pose an ongoing threat to individuals or to the community. And so that was one of the key reasons why he denied bond. Combs been asking for $1 million bond with certain travel restrictions, but they did not get it. He will remain in custody until the sentencing date.
Yeah, no, the really tough question, what are people talking about in terms of how much prison time he could actually get?
That's the real question, right? Up to 10 years, according to these, because of these 2 guilty counts. But because of sentencing guidelines here in New York State, it's very unlikely, legal experts say, that Combs would serve a full 10 years. As you heard in the package, one reason for that is that he has no criminal history. And so the judge will be using those sentencing guidelines, considering the factors in this specific case. The defense had asked for as little as 21 months. And Frank, that would presumably include time that Combs has already served. He has been in custody since September of last year. That's when he was first indicted by a grand jury and charged.
And Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend, one of the main witnesses against him, some pretty dramatic testimony. What's her reaction to all of this today?
Yeah, her attorneys came out and spoke. They say that she's in a good place. She is pleased that there were these 2 convictions, guilty decisions by the jury. But Ventura had also filed a civil lawsuit that was settled before all this unfolded. And one interesting point today is that while the jury cleared Combs of most of the most serious allegations here, he continues to face possible civil lawsuits by other alleged victims. So we could very well likely see, besides ongoing criminal issues, we could see Diddy in court again on civil cases.
All right, it looks busy there. We appreciate your time. Bradley Blackburn live in New York City for us. Thanks.